Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. Today I want to talk to you about the books that I read in January. So January was a really good reading month for me. I read 10 books, which is a large amount, and they were mostly successful. There was a few that were misses, but we'll talk about that in a second. So, I guess just to jump right in, the first book that I read was The Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is the second book in the Lord of the Rings series. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was a lot of fun. I really liked following both sets of characters because for part of the book you're following Frodo and Sam, and for part of the book you're following Gandalf and Legolas and Gimli and Aragorn and various other people. So yeah, I really liked this one. And there was less singing in it, which was good because I always kind of just skim over the songs in The Lord of the Rings because they can get long. The next book that I read was A Snake Falls to Earth by Darcy Littlebadger. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this one. It's about a young girl who is Indigenous and she is trying to learn more about her family's history, and she's learning about basically like the spirit realm where like the animal people live. So part of the book follows her name's Nina, and then part of the book follows a cottonmouth snake named Ollie, who is an animal person, so he can turn into a human, like he can look like a human or a snake, and they come together to try and help a friend. And I thought it was a really cute little story. I thought it was really cool to learn more about the Indigenous culture in it. The reason that I knocked it off a star is because I wish that Nina and Ollie would have met sooner in the book, and it was a little bit slow for me. So I think that if they had met in an earlier part of the book, I would have enjoyed it more because I really liked their dynamic. The next book that I read was Leadership and Self-Deception by the Arbinger Institute. I read this for a video that I did where I read books recommended to me by my sisters. If you missed that one, I will link it in the description box below. But I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. It's a pretty good nonfiction. Basically, it's like the golden rule, but they kind of put it into the context of like being in a box, and if you're in the box, you see other people as objects, and if you're out of the box, you see other people as human beings. So it's just basically about treating people with respect and how that can make you a better leader. So it was a good book. The next book that I read was The Return of the King by wow. Can I even say his name today? J.R.R. Tolkien. This is the last book in the Lord of the Rings series. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I loved this one, and I think that the Lord of the Rings series as a whole is a 5 out of 5 stars for me, even though I gave the first 2 4 stars. I thought this was a wonderful way to wrap up the story. I really loved the ending. I loved following all of the different characters. I love the way that Smeagol is tied into the story and kind of given a character arc. I just love it. I think that it's amazing. Aragorn is like my favorite character ever. He's so cool, and I just love this book. I thought it was amazing. Now I'm going to watch all of the Lord of the Rings movies because the reason that I was reading these in the first place is because I haven't seen any of the movies. I watched the Hobbit movies over Christmas, but they just put the Lord of the Rings on Netflix. So I'm going to be binge watching all of them, and I'm very excited about it. The next book that I read was Finlay Donovan Knocks Him Dead by El Casimano. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed the Finlay Donovan series so far, and I will be reading the 3rd one once my library gets it. I think that it's fun to follow kind of like her crazy hijinks, and she just gets herself into the most ridiculous situations, and you're like, dude, what the heck? But I think that it's a lot of fun. I think it's more of like a popcorn read, you could say, where it's not super deep, it's not super intellectual, you know, you're not really learning a ton from it, but it's entertaining and it's fun. And I think that it's really good to have a balance between books that you're learning from and that make you think deeply, and books that are just for fun and entertaining. So yeah. The next book that I read was the first flop of the month, and that was To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. I have a whole video where I vlogged myself reading this, and I go way more into depth in that one, so I will link it in the description box below. But I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. I just found it disappointing. It's too long. I didn't like the main character very much, and a lot of things didn't quite make sense to me. But check out that video if you want to know a more in-depth review of this one. The next book that I read, however, was not a flop at all, and that was Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. I've heard so much about this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. Basically, it's about it's like a pandemic story and a time travel story, and you're following multiple people in different time periods, and then you find out how they're connected. And I loved seeing how they were all connected at the end, and it kept my attention. The writing was beautiful, and I thought it was a very interesting look at pandemics, because this was written during like the height of the COVID pandemic, and so it's just kind of interesting to read a book with that context, and then having lived through that, just kind of seeing how I might relate to some people's reactions and not relate to others, things like that. So I thought it was cool. The next book was The Book Eaters by Sunyi Dean. I gave this book 2 out of 5 stars. I did not like it. What to say? So, okay, let me tell you what it's about first. This is about people who eat books for knowledge and to stay alive. So instead of reading books, they consume them, and then that's how they gain the knowledge from the books. And you're following a woman who is a book eater and her son who is a mind eater. Mind eaters have to eat brains to get knowledge. And basically she's trying to find this pill that will make it so that her son can consume books to stay alive, and she won't have to keep finding victims for him. And I thought that, like, the concept of them eating books and consuming books for knowledge would be more central part of the story, and it really wasn't. I just didn't enjoy reading it. I didn't have a good time reading it. A lot of the stuff, kind of the way that it wraps up and everything, didn't really make a lot of sense to me, and it wasn't my favorite. I didn't really like the romance in it either. Mostly just because it was kind of like an insta-love situation, and, you know, this main character is supposed to be somebody who's, like, fighting for her life, fighting for her son, trying to sacrifice everything to make sure her son's okay. She doesn't trust anybody. She's been through all these things, and then she just falls in love with this woman all of a sudden, and it's like, you just met her. Why do these things not apply to her when it applies to everybody? I don't know. It just wasn't my favorite. Is there anything else that I want to say about it? It wasn't super graphic, which I appreciated. I don't know. I just kind of expected more. I didn't enjoy reading it. So, there's that. The next book that I read is A Wilderness of Stars by Shay Earnshaw. Here is what it looks like. This is the only one that I have a physical copy of. The rest of these, by the way, I've read on ebook, Libby, through the Libby app, free library app. You should check it out. It's awesome. Not sponsored, I just love it. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars, and I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions, you guys, because this book doesn't make any sense. Okay. My number one gripe with sci-fi is if it's bad science, and this book has bad science. You can't write a sci-fi if you're not gonna have good science in it. I'm sorry, I can't get behind that. Things don't make sense to me. So we're following this girl, her name is Vega, she's like the last astronomer, and basically she has to go on this journey to find some people to try and solve this sickness. And the thing that is the main part of why the sickness is happening, how the sickness can be solved, blah blah blah, she keeps it a secret because it's like dangerous knowledge. I can't spoil it for you. I don't want to spoil it for you because, you know, you might like it even though I don't. But I just don't understand why she would keep it a secret, because it didn't seem like that made a lot of sense to me. And then this book is like, I think it's trying to be too many genres at once, because it's like Western vibes, but also sci-fi, but also kind of fantasy. And I didn't even realize that it was sci-fi till the last 50 pages. And I don't like that. I would rather it just be, like, if that's going to be the explanation, I would rather that be throughout the book and not just kind of thrown in at the end. So yeah, I didn't really like that one, but it was a fast read. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to say about it. This is YA, and on the cover, in the inside sleeve, it says ages 14 and up. Now, this is my opinion. You can disagree with me if you want to, but I think that if a book is marketed as 14 and up, you know, I equivalent that to like a PG-13 movie. It shouldn't be saying the F word more than one time, because that's what the rating is for PG-13 movies. And I get it that there's not like laws for books, but I think that there should be ratings for books the same way that there's ratings for movies, because it would make it a lot easier for a lot more people to find the types of books that they like. But I just think that if you're going to be writing a YA book, you need to make it appropriate for a YA audience, and I don't think that a ton of swearing is appropriate for a YA audience. Plus, you know, this book to me read a lot younger than 14 until there was random F words in it. And then I'm like, why are you throwing this in? Are you just trying to like get it up to the age? I don't know. It just seemed like that was kind of an inconsistency to me, and that's just a pet peeve of mine, because I don't like reading things that are very vulgar. And this wasn't super vulgar. It said that the F word 3 times, which isn't an insane amount. But I think that there needs to be more consistency when it comes to what you're classifying your book as far as middle grade, YA, adult, whatever, so that people can know what to expect going into a book as far as language and sexual content and stuff like that, and violence, stuff like that. So that's just kind of a personal gripe of mine. The last book that I read was the first book in the Sisters Grimm series, Fairy Tale Detectives. I am making a whole video about this, so I'll tell you that it's 5 stars for me, but I'm not going to tell you anything else, and you'll have to subscribe to see my full thoughts on this one and the rest of the books in the series. So yeah, those were the 10 books that I read in the month of January. It was a great reading month for me. I hope that February goes just as well. And that's all I have to say. Let me know how your reading month went. Have you read any of these books? If so, let me know what your thoughts were on them. Like this video if you liked it, and subscribe for more like this. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye!